Do you recognize that theme song? Let me increase the volume. Anyone guess? If you're watching the replay, put the name of the movie and the movie star who was in this epic movie from the 70s, right? What can I say? Handling conflict with your adult children can feel like you are a boxer in the fighting rink, sometimes without any boxing gloves, but you feel that your adult child has the right equipment and you don't, right? And I was inspired to do this Facebook Live because I actually had one of the worst verbal conflicts. We don't really have physical conflicts in this household, fortunately. And I felt so helpless. I felt like quitting my parent coaching career path and felt like a crummy mom. And I think every parent, I don't know if any of you folks can relate, but we forget, or we seem to forget how to effectively communicate because we are filled with either resentment or confusion, or a lot of times it's extreme hurt. And you don't know how to respond. So I was told that I immediately defend myself. And instead of really listening and having, the other person heard, felt, you want to be heard. You want to be understood, and you want someone to practice empathy whenever you want to share something that might be uncomfortable to share. So with adult kids, though, it is difficult. We're having a lot of adult kids move back into the house, right, because of COVID. Sometimes divorce happens, and not only does your adult child move in, but also your grandchildren move in. Sometimes, the family dynamics changes, and it creates almost like a Pandora box opening, right? And sometimes you feel uncomfortable sharing something because you don't want to create conflict. So I decided to devote today, Facebook Live number 58, on how do we handle conflict with our adult children. Okay, so I came up with 5. Did some research. These are the 5 that resonated with me. It is difficult, but we need to practice speaking to one another like respectful adults, right? That means not offering unsolicited advice. That means not making inappropriate demands. When our emotions get the best of us, words are exchanged where we will regret later. It will these words that are shouted in anger. I know that I regretted a lot of things that I've said in the past. And fortunately, we make the time to reconnect and talk about it. What hurt us, what made us feel, not acknowledged. Maybe we felt judged. Maybe we felt like the relationship was not going in the right direction, right? We've all been there, whether it's a relationship with a significant other, a relationship with a best friend, a boss, a coworker. The one with your children, when they say get rid of toxic people, sometimes you feel that family members are toxic. Sometimes you can get rid of toxic people, maybe not talk to your sister or your husband for a while. But when it comes to our children, as a parent, I personally feel it's our responsibility as well as theirs, but we need to role model how to effectively communicate. We need to role model how to handle conflict. And we need to really show our kids that no matter the disagreement, and this is the hardest part, if you choose to have a healthy relationship with your adult children, how can we live with differences, right? Especially when we are just extremely hurt because of actions, because of words, because of some situation that causes you so much emotional pain that you'd rather not communicate with your child, right? So Speaking to one another like adults, I noticed that my adult children have said that I end up speaking down to them condescendingly, or I treat them like a 12-year-old when they're not. They're 19 and 25. But then our children, in our eyes, will sometimes always remain the child, right? And we forget that they are adults. Number 2, taking responsibility, but this is for both sides, right? Shaping, maintaining, just managing the relationship. So I thought these 3 areas of how to take responsibility I wrote down so I don't veer off track like I do sometimes. Compromise is a must, right? Initiating contact. Sometimes you don't want to be the first one to speak. Sometimes your child doesn't want to be the first one to speak. A lot of negotiating, but mutually finding an enjoyable way to connect. I'm a writer. My oldest daughter is a writer, so sometimes we text and we can communicate better that way to initiate contact, and then we make time to engage in a verbal interaction. And I really wanted to be conscious of letting her feel heard and understood without judgment and without putting in my 2 cents, because I think it is natural. I don't know about you, but we relate to what they're going through, so we tend to share our life experiences and how we can relate. But when we do that, I've discovered they feel that it's all about us. So you have the right intention as a parent, but then if your child does not feel heard and understood, no matter how great your intention is, it's not going to produce a positive result. And the positive result is all that matters. So I thought I was giving encouraging, like words of wisdom or my experiences, but if it's not received, then I failed on my part. So I had to be vulnerable. I had to apologize, and I wanted to. It's not like I had to apologize, but the health of my the mental health of my daughters trumps everything. And I realized that I have to put my ego aside, and I have to really work on establishing a safe environment so that my daughters feel comfortable sharing anything that they feel uncomfortable about, if it's regarding what's happening in their life. But if your child fears judgment, if your child is scared to come up to you, that's a huge, huge message that we might not be ready to hear. Why? Why are you scared to talk to me? And I thought I was always, we had the best relationship. Well, we have, current tense, but I'm realizing that sometimes we're human. Sometimes our words of wisdom, our life experiences, how we relate to our adult children, it's very different when you have a child who's a minor. Then you go through the toddler stage, then you go through the teen stage, then you go to that stage where they're graduating from high school, they're kind of like an adult. But when they're in their 20s, that's when, to me, at 19, I think you're an adult, but you're still testing the waters. You're still a teenager. And, even at 20, you're still navigating and discovering who you are as an adult child. And you don't want to, I feel sometimes like an imposter parent, where I feel like I need to say the right things to fix the situation, or at least make my family members feel better about themselves, feel better about the situation. But now I'm realizing that's not the way to connect. So, resentment builds when a child or a parent feels, entitled to wait for the other person. Hey, Sharon, thanks for popping in here. And I didn't realize, resentment works both ways. I didn't talk to my daughter for 5 days. Was it last year? It was during the pandemic. And I guess I didn't realize stonewalling is one of the worst things you can do. But, I defended myself, saying the reason why I wasn't ready to talk to her was because I was afraid of saying anything that I would regret. But at the same time, my daughter was saying, being the mature one, and saying, how can we resolve any conflict if I, as a mother, am not willing to interact with her, to really have a deep conversation, talk about what triggered me, what triggered her, and how to resolve conflict if you don't make the time to emotionally connect. And I thought about it, and I just said, I'm not ready. And I had really good friends tell me, you can't be doing this. You cannot be stonewalling your child. You can't be running away, right? And avoiding the difficult subject. So I'm here today, and I urge you, if you have adult children, please make the time to emotionally connect. Because when you're no longer here, and I've been having my adult daughters share a lot of childhood experiences. Some of them I don't even know, but we have no idea what a strong impact we have with our words, even with our expressions, with our behaviors. Just going, makes our child feel that they're an inconvenience. When you're on your phone, or when you're busy meeting a deadline, and you have your phone and go, yeah, what? Do you need me? And it makes them feel that they, are not priority. And I always thought that I made sure that my daughters knew that they were priority, but I've been told that sometimes other things appear to be priority, and I don't communicate that. And I looked at myself and my husband, and I put myself in her shoes. When you put yourself in your children's shoes, the perception will drastically change. Because as a parent, right, you just think, I've done so much for you, I've sacrificed, I've done all this. And then I realize that that's doing a guilt trip. And I am famous for doing that, right? Because you, as a mother, as a father, you don't feel appreciated, and you've done so much to give your child the future that they have, the education, the birthday parties, the fill in the blank. But when we put that back on them, I had someone's child say, I wasn't asked to be born. And that was a wake-up call for her. And I thought, wow, in a way, you just think, if your child says anything that pushes your buttons, right? My immediate thing is, oh my gosh, how dare you be disrespectful? And then I thought, how many times have I acted disrespectful? If your child, reacts the way that you don't want them to, that's a message. Talk about it. Okay, I see that I've triggered something in you. You're upset. Let's talk about it. And if they say, I don't want to talk about it, okay, that's fine, but I want to let you know that when you are ready, I will try my best to offer a safe environment where you can share, and all I'm going to do is listen. My friend said, get tape, or just put my hand over my mouth, or just eat a banana or something and keep my mouth just shut. Because once you start saying a little something, it's like an avalanche of words. And then if they say something that you disagree with, I always feel like I have to defend why I did what I did. So learn to constructively have a conflict. And I thought, wow, those are powerful words, right? How do you have a constructive conflict? Conflict itself is such a very, it's a harsh word. It's a negative word, conflict. But when you have a constructive conflict, it can patch differences. It can patch years of resentment. Just saying something like, you know what, I had no idea, Dad and I did this all these years. That one of the things that were brought up was that I guess we fought, my husband and I fought, and then we never said that, you know what, we did argue, it was resolved, and it had nothing to do with you. And so my daughter said, yeah, we had no idea. And so from her perception, she saw a major argument, right? I have a temper, I have to admit. And then a few hours later, everything was fine. And she said, that's a messed up message. And I thought, I was just so defensive. I mean, how many parents share that with their kids? I know you saw a really difficult argument that was an explosive, situation, conflict. It was just something like boxers in a boxing ring. And then all of a sudden, picture, people just, it's almost like having, and it would sound weird, but, you have two enemies that just really, really, they cannot stand each other for that brief moment. And then later on, they're like best friends. They're eating dinner. They're like laughing. You think, wait a minute, what's going on here, right? And I didn't realize how important it is for our children, no matter what age, teach them that conflict does not mean that you don't love the person. I'm guilty of saying really, really mean things. I'm working on it, and I'm realizing how destructive these mean words can be. And so I've made it a point to make one of my parenting tips to, really watch the words that we say. At first I thought it was just, criticism, but now I realize the way that you communicate with your spouse will have a huge impact on how they communicate with their significant other, with their friends, with their coworkers, with their boss even. And we are implanting in their neural pathways, your brain just picks up and remembers every single thing that you've done. You don't really remember it consciously, but your subconscious remembers everything, even in utero. Scientists have realized through, magical scientific, experiments, that I don't understand, but I do believe that, when your child brings up something that you said that really hurt them when they were 10, and you think, did that really happen? Number one, don't question what your child is. Don't question your child's memory. Because sometimes we think, no, I didn't say that, right? And that's what happens a lot of times with miscommunication. Yes, you did. No, I didn't. So someone that I met with yesterday said, yeah, they went to marriage counseling, and that's the number one, I guess, trigger that starts huge arguments, explosive interactions, when one person says something that either causes you to feel like you're a liar, that you're incompetent, and put words in your mouth. But you know what I'm realizing? It doesn't matter what we say. It's how the other person, how your child interpreted your words, your behavior, your whole energy, right? How they interpreted is what's going to matter. So, silent treatment, screaming fights, ignoring issues, guilt trip, which I am currently working on, and just these conflict cycles. Because, if you're not aware of the conflict styles, unhealthy conflict styles, and I'm realizing I engage in a lot of unhealthy conflict styles, because once I get really angry, you can't control it, and it all these conflict styles happen during your childhood. So what we witnessed, our parents, what we witnessed, our grandparents, or any conflict that we witnessed, it is hard to revise our what we have been used to, So some people who never saw their parents fight think, wow, my parents never fought. In every relationship, if there's no fighting, one person is always giving in. Resentment might be building, or the person thinks, you know what, it's all right, it's not worth it. I'll just get you. I'll let you have your way. So I'm going to be vulnerable here. My daughter told me that she thought that women just gave crap and men took it. And I thought, wow, that's a message that she received during childhood. And it's interesting that my other daughter, maybe she just chose to believe or perceive, whatever she saw. And I saw my parents argue a lot, and I saw that they made up, but I didn't really see that as weird. I just thought, okay, couples argue and then couples make up. My parents never apologized. So for the first 40 years, I never apologized. I said, when I'm wrong, I will apologize. Then my husband, God bless him, taught me how to apologize. And when you apologize, it doesn't mean that you're weaker. It doesn't mean that, you are not lesser than. But our ego, my ego at least, gets in the way. So I do it in other ways. So my eldest has been painting bird of paradise. So I found, bird of paradise at Walmart, put in a vase, wrote a little poem, and I said, I may not know what to say, but I love you every single day. And I thought, first of all, that rhyme, so it's pretty cool. But I thought, you know what? I want her to know that I might not always have the right words to say. And it's amazing how just that one thing, and for me to own it, I said, I am so sorry that I've done this to you. You did not deserve, to feel this way. Because when our kids have anxiety, they have fears, they have resentment, I believe as a parent that we are instrumental in helping our child's mental health, and if we don't take responsibility, if we don't let our egos aside, it is scary, because we don't know that after we're gone, the messages, the subliminal messages that they received, You don't know what they get from what you say. So accept feedback, right? That's number 4. Accept feedback. Maybe a certain tone that you used. I've been told that my eyes are expressive. My tone is, I might say the right words, but if I use the wrong tone, if I look at you the wrong, not the wrong way, but a very critical, judgmental way, my message will not be heard. Even my students, I'm like, I didn't say that was wrong. No, Miss Karen, you have a look. So apparently I have a very expressive look. But, if a tone was used, if you triggered feelings in your child and they felt hurt, they felt judged, they felt criticized, and all you're doing is maybe sharing some life wisdom, or you're saying stuff like, well, you know what? It's your choice. If you want to make the wrong decision, I'm not going to say anything. That says a lot. Or, I'm not going to give a crap anymore about your grades. Your child hears, you don't give a crap about them, right? And you think, but I didn't say that. I'm just saying, I don't care about grades. But think about that tone of voice. It's not like, you know what? It is your choice. I am not going to make academic achievements mean anything. So I've been telling my daughters, grades don't define your value. And my daughter's like, you would have parented us totally different, had you been the parent coach that you are today. And I tell them, I'm learning every day, and when I think of ending my parent coach career path, they're like, no, Mom, you know what? You're relatable. If you don't make mistakes, how can other parents relate to you? I'm like, okay. But this past argument, guys, when you're like crying, feeling like a failure, feeling that my worst fear is damaging my child's self-esteem or causing maybe trauma, so that, and I'm going to be vulnerable once again. I guess I used to say this a lot, and I didn't realize how it affected and how it created childhood trauma. But when I was really frustrated, I would say stuff like, you know what, I don't know I'm going to be here when you guys come from school. I just don't know. I can't do this anymore. And so my daughters thought that I was either going to run away. At the age of 12, my older one found out that I tried to commit suicide when I was in my 30s. And I've shared that on past interviews and past Facebook Lives, but that alone made my daughter feel responsible for my mental health. And I didn't realize that before she even knew that, at age 4, she felt that it is my job to make mommy happy. That's a huge, huge burden to carry. So your child might not even express what's going on emotionally, what's going on mentally. Something is going on if they're not doing their schoolwork, if they're being, maybe addicted to video games. Sometimes it becomes an escape, and they just want to, that's how they deal with stress. That's how they deal with boredom. That's how they deal with just like, I can't handle this, or I'm bored. I just need to connect, right? Social interaction is important. And I don't have daughters, but the boys that I tutor have shared. Video games become their lives because conquering a mission together, and I've been told if they lead the mission and they win, it's such a natural high. I guess that's how I felt when I got the A, on a test or in a class, or now it's like when I help someone and they succeed, I feel I succeeded. So we really have to change our perception on what we hear our kids say. If they're rolling their eyes, it might look disrespectful, but that's a sign that your child is not agreeing with what you said. So I think if we put our ego aside and say, okay, I can tell that right now, I'm feeling disrespected, but own it. I'm feeling disrespected, but I can tell that you're feeling unhappy or something's going on. Can we talk about it? And if they say, no, I don't want to talk about it. Okay, that's fine, but I'm letting you know that when you're ready, I'm here to listen. And I promise I'll try my best not, to provide a safe place. I promise to not criticize. You have to hold your hand over your mouth. And, they might, yeah, sure, right. Just remind them, I will be there for you. And they're probably going to think, you never were before, or, you always end up lecturing. Like my daughters are like, oh, hey, Mary. My daughters always say, oh, Mom's ready to give us a life lesson. Here she goes. And I think, no, I'm not giving a life lesson. And then I've recently learned It doesn't matter what my agenda is. If the other party, if your adult child doesn't receive your wonderful words that you feel are wonderful, then it's not a positive interaction, right? So the last one, right, is respect one another's boundaries. And I'm realizing as a parent, a lot of times we think, I'm the parent. Just listen, and your life will be so much easier, right? And someone told me yesterday that Gary Vee, I don't know if you know about him, but he is just an amazing, motivational speaker. And just Google him, Google Gary Vee. But he said, your child is always right, right? And I know you're thinking, my child is always right? What do you mean? Even when, they are disrespectful, even when they're fill in the blank. But I think what his message is don't discount what your children are saying. Let them feel heard. Let them feel that what they say matters, because we are building their self-esteem. And I've heard adults say, my childhood was so messed up because I was always criticized. I was never given, any self-esteem praise because maybe your parent never knew. We parent the way that we were parented. Or sometimes, like me, I'm an only child. I'm an only child, so I was enabled. I felt like my parents, taught me that my whole life, the whole world revolved around me. So it's very difficult. So my goal, my mission was to make sure that my daughters knew that the world did not revolve around them. That sometimes life is, not the way that we want life to be. So maybe I became that educator. And I don't know if any of you teachers are watching this, it's almost like you become this educator and your children become your students. And that shouldn't be that way. I mean, in some ways, we are all teachers and educators, but we also have to be the student. And once we change that role, we're going to realize that our children can teach us the greatest lessons. When you feel angry, when you feel resentful, when you feel like, why are they just pushing my buttons and driving me to lose my sanity? Those are wonderful opportunities to grow. So Mary here is part of my LMA, this is Life Mastery Achievers program. And it's an amazing program by Tim Hahn. And we have grown, right, Mary? We have grown so much in just learning about ourselves. We don't really question, like, who are we as parents and what is our mission? What do we want our children to learn after we're gone? It's beyond just, respect, be respectful individuals, and do good and stay away from crime or don't be immoral. And we have all of these life lessons. But the most important lesson, well, in my perception, is to teach your child that they matter no matter what, and they don't need to earn your love. If they get an F, don't say, hey, wait a minute, why did you get an F? Did you not study hard? Wait, well, what's going on? What are you not doing right? Are you studying? Are you taking notes? Because then your child thinks, okay, I'm disappointing my parents. And I've had kids tell me when they have their video games taken away, when everything is taken away, the most important thing that hurts is disappointing their parents. And I thought, wow, you would think that, they miss the video games, they miss the privileges taken away. But when we express disappointment, it crushes our child's self-esteem. It crushes our child's belief in even future dreams. Because if you don't believe in yourself, how can you even think of the future and believe that you have everything that it takes to achieve? I don't know if I'm turning this into a life lesson. Sorry if I sound like I'm lecturing. But yeah, so that's what I have for, how to improve conflict with adult children. So to just recap, okay, number 1, speak to one another like adults in a respectful fashion. Number 2, take responsibility, right, for shaping, maintaining and managing your relationship with your adult child. Number 3 is constructive conflicts, right? Try to avoid the silent treatment, the screaming matches. As soon as you catch yourself engaging in any kind of negative behavior, take a deep breath. Say, you know what? I'm sorry. I can see that things are getting out of hand. Can we just take a few minutes, or let's reconvene in half an hour, or let's reconvene when we're both in a better space. And then number 4, of course, respect one another's boundaries. And number 5, accept feedback. Ask your child, and I've done this, and it just changes the entire mood. Is there anything that I can do? Is there anything that I can do to help you? And, when there's fits of anger, it does, you just kind of like hold your breath. And she said, and that's why I'm doing this. She said, as a parent, if you're doing a parenting tip, why don't you do a parenting tip on what parents can do to improve communication, to make their child feel heard, understood, without judgment, in a safe place? And I thought, okay, we learn the best from our children. So instead of thinking that we are here to teach our children, my challenge to you is ask yourself every single day, what did my child teach me? Was it to be patient? Was it to release criticism or judgment? Or just, what did you learn about yourself? I've been learning a lot about myself lately that I want to improve on, because when we're gone, don't you want your child to be left with positive, happy memories? I have adults sharing, oh my gosh, I remember the awful things my mom said. I remember the awful, just heartbreaking, hurtful things that my dad said. So I thought, oh my gosh, I want to tell parents out there, anyone listening, that it is up to us to build a healthy relationship. And if you are one of those parents who do not have a healthy relationship, it's not too late. It is never too late. Send them a text, say that I know that, we had an argument. Just want to let you know that I apologize. And I want to make amends. Let me know what we can do, what I can do. Any comments, any feedback, please message me or comment after you watch this Facebook Live. Thanks, guys. Bye. Have a great, great Wednesday, and I hope magical miracles come your way. Okay?